Hi world, hi YouTube, this is Sabrina in China. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining. Today, I'll be talking about how Vladimir Putin exposed American lies. Before I get into the video, remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Let's go. So American journalist Tucker Carlson had an interview with the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. And my gosh, it has confirmed a lot of the things that I've said on this channel over and over again as it relates to the US and the mainstream media that is controlled by the US. Firstly, it was reported by mainstream media Vladimir's Putin's mental health and overall health was in a complete decline. Yet we saw this interview how he was able to speak uninterrupted for over 20 minutes about the history of Ukraine and Russia. Unbelievable. You cannot believe that this man's mental health is in decline. Yes, that's what they said. But let's take a look at the president of the US.
And Joan Shanghai, I'm going to pass by Shanghai, $159 billion led. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. The idea that.
Now, if you have not seen the interview, I urge you to go and seek the interview and at least watch the first 30 minutes and you can make your assessment which president's mental health is in decline based on the clip I just showed you and the interview with Vladimir Putin. One thing I want to point out from this interview is that Tucker Carlson, who is very much anti-China and holds a very aggressive stance on China, he asked Putin if the BRICS nations are fearful of China dominating their sovereignty and their domestic affairs. And one thing I've said on this channel over and over is that China's foreign policy is one of non-interference and respecting the sovereignty of other countries' affairs. China's foreign policy does not dictate that they go in a country and interfere in their domestic policies. The US, on the other hand, they constantly interferes in their allies' domestic policy, their allies' domestic affairs, and countries that wants to do business with the US. In order for a country to do business with the US, they must adapt policies that fit the agenda of the USA. I see it happen in my country, Jamaica, over and over again. You can check out this video where I spoke at length about the US dictatorship behavior on the international arena. And when Putin answered this question, he correlates what I've been saying on this channel about China's foreign policy.
The question is what comes next, and maybe you trade one colonial power for another much less sentimental and forgiving colonial power. I mean, is the BRICS, for example, in danger of being completely dominated by the Chinese economy in a way that's not good for their sovereignty? Do you worry about that?
We have heard those boogeyman stories before. It is a boogeyman story. We're neighbors with China. You cannot choose neighbors just as you cannot choose close relatives. We share a border of 1,000 kilometers with them. This is number one. Second, we have a centuries-long history of coexistence. We're used to it. Third, China's foreign policy philosophy is not aggressive. Its idea is to always look for compromise, and we can see that. The next point is as follows. We are always told the same boogeyman story, and here it goes again, through an euphemistic form, but it is still the same boogeyman story. The cooperation with China keeps increasing. The pace at which China's cooperation with Europe is growing is higher and greater than that of the growth of Chinese-Russian cooperation. Ask Europeans, aren't they afraid? They might.
I love how he said boogeyman story because it's what it is. Boogeyman stories. Over and over again, we've been told that China is bad. China has expansionist ideas, and China hates the US, and China hates this, and so many times. This is the narrative reported by mainstream media in the US, right? And that is far from the truth. I've explored that topic so many times on my channel. And, I just believe that European countries and American allies should be fearful of a strong USA, because a strong USA is an international dictator. The next point I want to highlight from this interview, which is another lie from the mainstream media in the US, is that Russia has expansionist goals, that Russia wants to invade other countries such as Poland. We've been told that, and that Russia is going to be the cause of the next world war. We've heard that so many times. But let's listen to what the president of Russia had to say about this.
The threat I think you're referring to is a Russian invasion of Poland, Latvia, expansionist behavior. Can you imagine a scenario where you sent Russian troops to Poland?
Only in one case, if Poland attacks Russia. Why? Because we have no interest in Poland, Latvia, or anywhere else. Why would we do that? We simply don't have any interest. It's just threat mongering.
There you go. Threat mongering. And that is what the US does. The US does that best through their media. They send fear and threat into those who listen and those who believe. And that's why I think it is so important that Tucker Carlson had this interview with Vladimir Putin, so that we, the people, can hear both sides of the story and compare notes to make an assessment for ourselves on what is the truth. I believe that a controlled media fueled by fear and threat and hate will be the cause of another world war if it happens, because then it desensitizes us to war, and then we become accepting of war because we believe that one country can save us and save us from the doom and looming fear of a big bad Russia, for example, that the USA must send troops to invade Russia because of this big bad fear of Russia invading the world and starting this world war. I believe the antidote for war right now is to hear both sides, so that we can make an assessment for ourselves. I am not saying I agree with everything that was said in this interview, or I agree with Putin's stance on Ukraine or the war in Ukraine, because at the end of the day, no one wins in war. I have a colleague who's Ukrainian, and she talks about the fallout of the war on Ukrainian. She talks about how people in Ukraine are suffering as a result of the war in Ukraine right now. So I'm not saying I support this war. I'm not saying I support Putin or that I love Putin. What I am saying, however, is that it's important for us not to believe all the lies reported from mainstream media in the US. Because you know what? They're not happy with this. They're not happy that we can hear another side of the story.
We saw nothing new in Putin's interview. He repeated old lies, distortions, and manipulations, and displayed a great deal of hostility towards the West, which is not new. And we regret that Putin has actually provided a platform to manipulate and spread propaganda.
Tucker Carlson is in Moscow right now interviewing Vladimir Putin.
Right. I would not be surprised if he emerges with a contract with a Russian outlet, because he is a useful idiot. He says things that are not true. He parrots Vladimir Putin's pack of lies about Ukraine. So I don't see why Putin wouldn't give him an interview.
There you go. They called Tucker Carlson a useful idiot. Just like how they've called many of us here in China who dare to say anything positive, anything good in China, a CCP shill, and that we were bought and paid by the CCP to say everything or anything good about China. I'm sure every single person, every single foreigner who's ever said anything good about China has been labeled a CCP shill. And so, what is the truth? Should we rely on mainstream media for the truth? Or should we seek the truth for ourselves? I believe that it is important for us to listen to both sides of the stories, listen to other people outside of mainstream media, and make an assessment for yourself. Guys, this has been Sabrina in China. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.